Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today guys, we're jumping down into the world of Bitcoin, taking a look at what's been going on most recently and kind of what we think is likely to happen next. As I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, smash that like button, I do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Now if you have not yet joined us in Discord, guys, check it out, linked in the description down below. It is a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there. It's the first place we go to notify you of the ins and the outs of everything that is going on in this space. So do check it out, linked in the description below. Let's dive right down into this then. Bitcoin paired up with USDT on the hourly chart, and Binance is our data source here. So kind of following on from all the various other videos that we've been doing recently, we kind of were in this ranging market. If we zoom out far enough, you can see that we are actually still in this ranging market on a much zoomed out view, and basically just bouncing around between the demand zone and the supply zone. Okay, so not a lot has changed from that kind of point of view. We obviously saw a couple of interesting kind of things. We had this kind of three-wave structure coming up here, touching just ever so slightly on here, this supply zone range, and getting rejected from here. Okay, so we saw this happening last night, and yeah, we kind of are in this little move to the downside by the looks of it. Now, on a slightly bigger scale, we do have this move here where we can kind of aggregate all this stuff together, and it looks pretty positive. But I don't think we're done moving down yet. We haven't reached the demand zone, and this is really where the buyers are at the moment. So for that to kind of think we're completed, I think we are not quite there yet. So it'd be interesting to kind of see how this plays out next. I do think we have a little bit more to the downside to go. Now, if we measure this move here as a little micro one, we can see that we've already come up into our typical kind of moves, and we finished three waves to the upside here. We're not reaching those impulsive levels or anything like that. We've come back down and we had overlap here as well. So essentially it looks like we are kind of done up in this little range here. Now we could go up a little bit higher, but I'm going to kind of highlight a couple of key things. We obviously have our wicks here. So if I go and snap this on here and pull this down just a fraction and pull this across here, you can kind of see this little area. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to alter this to white just so we have that little area there. So what we can do is we can see that this area is a little area of resistance. Okay, so it's an area where previously a lot of people have been historically kind of selling, and you can kind of see it in this little area as well, really kind of fighting this range. If I pull it across here, you can see it was previously support, and also if I pull it down here, you can kind of see it's acting as resistance. So we can kind of take this one further back. We can see that this is an important area. This actually comes in at 16,990 to 17,010. Now, if I just shoot up a little bit higher here, we can also see a very interesting range, and I'm going to do it this way, and then we'll pull it to the left. Okay, and if we do it like this, you can also see this really interesting range here as well. So this is again where some sellers are. So if we think about this in another way, that we're basically looking at buyers that are buying in this particular range. They're buying here. We broke it. We haven't retested it, so it is possible that we do. This, for reference, guys, is 17,088 to 17,101. Okay, so some interesting kind of numbers right in there. If you're in the Discord, in the Patreon memberships, you'll know why we put out a recent kind of statement on Bitcoin and what this represents. Now, I'm thinking we're going to get rejected from this area here. Okay, I don't think we're necessarily going to push on through. If we do push on through it, then we have this higher range here where I do expect rejection. Okay, so for Bitcoin here, that's kind of where I'm looking at it. Now, it does look on a macro scale like we have kind of completed this move here, but I don't think that's necessarily correct just yet. I think there's actually a little bit more room to the downside. As I said, we kind of completed those three waves right in here, 1, 2, and 3, or A, B, and C. And so my next expectation here is to kind of just move on down. Now, we could either look at this as 5 waves, we could look at this as 3 waves. We don't know what that's quite going to look like yet. Now, from a 5-wave point of view, I think we actually kind of already have done this right in here. We kind of finished it. There's no real need to kind of move down in another 5-wave move unless we go into a zigzag pattern, which is very, very possible. This basically being that we've just come up here, we come down and we do something like this, and it just becomes a zigzag taking us into our demand zone. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. I think this week's going to be pretty brutal for the price action of BTC, so I'm not expecting terribly too much. Now, from our stochastic RSIs, we're nice and high on our 1 hour chart. We're also really high on our daily chart. We actually are in a pretty good position on the 4 hour, and the 8 hour is almost in a pretty good position. If I come over here, you can see it's almost in this oversold area, whereas our daily chart is all the way up here in this overbought, and it's been here for a while, and it is a ticking time bomb for a move to the downside. So don't expect this to kind of hold within this ranging market for terribly too long, specifically with so much fundamental things happening this week with the Fed and various other kind of countries around the world talking about their interest rate hikes, etc. So just kind of keep these things in mind, that from I guess an economic standpoint globally, we are not in the best positions, and Bitcoin here is going to react, in my opinion. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe moves to the upside at some point later today or tomorrow. So it might be that actually what happens here is we come down here, then out of nowhere we come up here, just to liquidate people before we crash down and maybe even lose this demand zone area. So keep those things in mind. This market, we see it kind of do things very, very strangely from time to time. It's all about liquidity. It's all about where the money sits and how people can grab hold of that before the actual move takes place. So just be really, really cautious. Now, in terms of what's going on chain, we can see that we have still slightly more in the way of outflows than inflows as people remain really cautious, keeping too much money on exchanges. So rightfully so, we can kind of see that there. But these are small numbers. We're talking 11,000 onto exchanges, 14,000 off the exchanges. Nothing too major. From our wallet counts, we can see that the shrimps have actually started to slow down. 962,754 to 962,881. So not growing very fast now. On the dolphin side, though, there is still accumulation or withdrawals from the exchanges. So these spikes, these massive spikes to the upside, guys, this is all around FTX and basically people losing faith in keeping crypto on centralized exchanges, which is why a lot of people are now turning to things like the Ledger hardware wallet, or just a cold storage device. Now, we actually are affiliated with Ledger, linked in the description below. If you haven't yet got yourself cold storage, do check those guys out. You can buy, obviously, many different brands. We just like Ledger, a lot of bang for your buck, essentially. So do check that out if you haven't yet done so or are looking and investigating hardware wallets. The only thing I would say, whether you use our link or not, make sure you always buy it directly from the manufacturer and don't get these fake ones on eBay or Amazon. They are potentially hacked devices that will basically enable you to lose your crypto. So don't worry about saving $10. I'd rather have the peace of mind personally. Let's move on over into the larger size wallets. And as we can see from these larger size wallets, they are coming out of their position. So there's always a buyer, there's always a seller. If retail are buying, they're buying it from the whales. And in this particular case here, it's business as usual for these guys. They have been coming out pretty much all of this year so far. Let me just bring this up. You can see from up here in March of 2022, and they've been coming out very nicely ever since. So big money is not back in BTC, only small money, retail money is back in BTC, and that has an expiration date, in my opinion. So just kind of keep those things in mind. Until big money really wants to get into this space, the only way that they're going to do it is to buy the Bitcoin from the retail investor. So until retail is selling, whales are not buying, and if whales are not buying, we're not seeing any big moves in the case of BTC anytime soon. So keep those things in mind. Now, we're following the money here. Does not necessarily mean that these guys are going to create the bottom. I do think they will, but it's not a guarantee. I think that these guys will basically continue to pull the market and drag the market down and to the point where retail money is actually then flooding out of the space, and big money then comes in. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. It's not a guarantee, but it is something that I think is highly likely as money flows around and we kind of enter into this recession and we end up in a really bad financial situation for most regular retail investors. I think they're going to succumb to selling pressure through necessity. So just kind of keep those things in mind. Don't just focus in on what's going on the charts. There's a lot more to it than just a couple of trend lines, for example. So yeah, for now, I do think we are expecting some more price pressure to the downside for BTC. but at some point we will probably see a larger significant bounce upwards as kind of more retail investors kind of FOMO in, thinking that the bottom is in and all that kind of stuff. We aren't there yet. I would estimate that then the daily becomes oversold on our stochastic RSIs. We'll be in a much better position to see significant growth in BTC, whether that's about 30 or 40%, I don't know. But also, in having that kind of move to the upside, we'll get an idea whether or not the structure is supporting the narrative that the bottom has arrived. At the moment, that just simply isn't there. There's nothing really here from Elliott wave theory to tell us that the bottom is in. And instead, on our daily chart, I actually have forecasted out lower lows still. So it does look like we have to come down lower, in my opinion. And this is heading down to between the $13,200 and the $14,700 levels. So everything's looking like we are heading in this direction. We just can't really necessarily see how we're going to do it just yet. Personally, I think we'll probably end up with some kind of bigger 5-wave structured move coming in here. Just to finish it off, it would be 335, wouldn't be anything more than that. It would just be a C-wave movement. And that would basically mark the end of that structure, which means a bigger bounce upwards. And if we get good structure on this one, then it could potentially mean that this is the bottom of the bear market. But until we start seeing big money coming in, I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm going to leave this video right there, though, guys. If you have found it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you're new, make sure you subscribe and don't forget to join us down in the Discord server. Guys, until the next one, have a fantastic day.